Hi, my name is Donna Cornejo, and I'll be presenting The Selling of Joseph, a memorial from 1700 by Samuel Sewall. Samuel was born on March 28, 1652, in Hampshire, England. He died January 1st, 1730, in Boston, Massachusetts, at the age of 77. His occupation: he was a judge, a businessman, and a printer, best known for being a judge in the Salem witch trials in 1692. The Salem witch trials were to bring to trial people that were accused of witchcraft. The court found 20 people guilty and executed them at that time. This is actually one of the pictures or drawings that I was able to find from those times for the Salem witch trials. His family, starting off with his parents, were Reverend Henry Sewall and Jane Sewall. Henry had moved to Massachusetts Bay in 1635, where he met Jane and married, then returned to England in the 1640s, and then moved back to Massachusetts in 1661. Samuel had 8 siblings: Hannah Tappan, Elizabeth Sewall, John Sewall, Stephen Sewall, Jane Garish, Anne Short, Mehitable Moody, and Dorothy Bradstreet. I did try to find if there was any pictures of his family, either siblings or his parents, but at that time in the 1600s, there's not actual pictures, it's just drawings of people, and I wasn't able to come across any drawings of his family. Samuel had 14 children with his first wife, Hannah, 2 of which died before adulthood. Samuel was married 3 times. He married in 1676 with Hannah Hole. They were married for 41 years. His second marriage was in 1719 with Abigail Woodmansee Tilley. She died 7 months after their marriage. And his third marriage was in 1722 with Mary Gibbs, and she actually outlived him. So Samuel attended Harvard College in 1667, and he received his first degree, his bachelor's, in 1671, and then his master's in 1674. For his writing, in 1674, he served as a librarian for Harvard for 9 months. He was the second person to hold that post. That year, he actually began keeping a journal, which he maintained for most of his life, and now it is one of the major historical documents of that time. He wrote the early anti-slavery appeal, The Selling of Joseph, 1700, a memorial relating to Kennebec Indians in 1721, and an argument for humane treatment of Indians, and unpublished verses and political and religious tracts. His political involvement: Sewall's involvement in political affairs began when he became a freeman of the colony, giving him the right to vote. This is actually one of the drawings that I was able to find, or pictures of Samuel Sewall. Brief summary: Samuel Sewall wrote The Selling of Joseph, a memorial to the people that supported slavery, to prove them wrong of their beliefs, and basically criticize slavery at that time. He wrote it on much legal, moral, and biblical way to go against taking, selling, and holding slaves, particularly African slaves. His solution was to stop importation of slaves from Africa. Two significant passages that I found in the text. One was, there should be more caution used in buying a horse or a little lifeless dust than there is in purchasing men and women, whenas they are offsprings of God. Second verse was, these Ethiopians, as black as they are, seeing they are the sons and daughters of the first Adam, the brethren and sister of the last Adam, the offspring of God. They ought to be treated with respect, agreeable. From these passages, I interpret them as to have more respect, no more of the color of the skin, because we're all offspring from God. So I saw that as just treat everyone equally. Details pertaining to the text. Samuel wrote this story in a religious manner from beginning to end. He wrote about it to explain how black slaves were people just like everyone else, that they were also children of God. This text was written just as the United States had been dealing with slavery, and many were still being imported from Africa. He believed that slaves already in the country should remain as slaves, but the importation of slaves had to stop. This story was printed in 1700. Slavery had begun in the United States since 1619, so it had been active for more than 80 years. And Massachusetts abolished slavery in 1783, which was 83 years after Samuel Sewall wrote The Selling of Joseph, a memorial. So the role the text played in its time, at that time Samuel Sewall, when he wrote the story, it was the time when slavery was a normality to the United States and other parts of the world as well. Samuel Sewall was in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts was actually the first colony to authorize slavery through legislation. Sewall believed that slaves can seldom use their freedom well. The story being written by Samuel Sewall was very important to come from him because he was a judge and also considered a Puritan at that time, which meant he was part of a Christian group that observed strict moral and spiritual codes. They had control of social and political life in the state of Massachusetts. How I was able to relate it to today, um, it is an important study on this author and his works because it was someone that tried to speak on the matter that at that time many did not want to speak on. Slavery was the norm and had been going on for over 80 years. It was at the peak of its time, and he wanted to make a change in some way of it by making others think in a different way. One of the current issues that this reminds me of is the movement of the Black Lives Matter. This wasn't just in the United States, other countries joined in the movement as well. It is a movement that was made to make a change in the injustice system with racism. Just as back then the text was made to try and make a change, the movement we just had was to try and make a change as well, for everyone to be treated equally. And this is actually a picture that I found back from 1638 versus a picture from 2019. So this is, I feel like that's how it relates also to today's date. This was just a year ago, and it kind of goes hand in hand with almost the same thing. This is one of the videos, actually, I believe it was maybe like the only video that I was able to come across from YouTube, and this would be pertaining Samuel Sewall and the selling of Joseph.
In 17th century Salem, Massachusetts, a mass hysteria led to over 160 people being accused of witchcraft and 19 executions.
On April 11, 1692, Samuel Sewall, printer and magistrate, wrote in his diary, went to Salem where in the meeting house the persons accused of witchcraft were examined.
Several years after the trials, only one judge gave a formal apology for his role, Samuel Sewall.
He went on in 1700 to also firmly denounce slavery and published one of the first anti-slavery tracts published in New England, The Selling of Joseph.
Quoting several biblical passages, including Exodus 21:16, "And seeing God hath said, He that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death."
Brought to you by Museum of the Bible.
Okay, so that was actually, I believe, like the only video that I was able to come across that they also spoke about for the text. And then my questions to you would be, after reading the story, what do you feel Samuel Sewall was trying to do writing it at that time? And also, how would you compare this text to what's going on in our time today? For me, it was obviously like the black movements, the Black Lives Matter movement. But I would want to know if there's something else for you guys that it would remind you of for today.